New York City wasn't always a skyline of steel and glass. It began quietly in 1624 as a modest Dutch settlement called New Amsterdam. Wooden houses lined narrow streets. There were windmills, warehouses, and churches, all designed with practicality in mind. But even in those early days, the seeds of ambition were already being sown into the soil of Manhattan. When the British took over in 1664, the city changed its name to New York, and its buildings changed style too. The English brought their taste for symmetry and brick construction. Georgian-style homes began to appear structured, balanced, and unpretentious. One of the oldest surviving buildings from this time, St. Paul's Chapel, still stands today in Lower Manhattan. It witnessed the birth of a city and even sheltered George Washington after his inauguration. As the 1800s unfolded, New York began to grow. The Erie Canal had opened new doors for commerce, and immigrants poured in by the thousands. A housing boom followed, and with it came the iconic brownstone. Rows of 3- or 4-story homes, built from reddish sandstone, lined the streets of Brooklyn, Harlem, and the Upper West Side. These homes were narrow, elegant, and marked by tall stoops, not just for style, but to lift residents above the muddy streets. Across the river in Soho, iron became fashionable. Cast iron allowed ornate facades to be mass-produced, creating decorative buildings faster and more affordably than ever before. As the city's wealth grew, so did its appetite for grandeur. The late 19th century became known as the Gilded Age, and architecture responded in kind. Inspired by the elegance of Paris, New York adopted the Beaux-Arts style. Buildings like the New York Public Library and Grand Central Terminal weren't just functional, they were theatrical. With marble staircases, vaulted ceilings, and classical columns, these structures made a statement. New York wasn't just a trading post anymore. It was a global capital. But the true transformation came with the invention of the steel frame. Suddenly, architects weren't limited by stone and brick. Buildings could reach higher, much higher. In 1902, the Flatiron Building stunned passersby with its triangular silhouette, rising 20 stories above the intersection of Fifth Avenue and Broadway. 11 years later, the Woolworth Building soared to 792 feet, a Gothic-inspired skyscraper that earned the nickname Cathedral of Commerce. It was the tallest building in the world at the time, a vertical monument to the American dream. Then came the skyscraper race of the 1920s and 30s, a golden era of ambition and design. Art Deco, with its geometric patterns and sleek lines, became the defining style of the age. The Chrysler Building, completed in 1930, gleamed with chrome eagles and hubcap motifs, the celebration of both architecture and the automobile. Just 1 year later, the Empire State Building took the crown. At 1,250 feet, it towered over Midtown Manhattan. Built during the depths of the Great Depression, it stood as a symbol of hope and endurance. Its construction took just over a year, an engineering marvel even today. By mid-century, the mood changed, the war was over, and the world was looking to the future. Architecture turned minimalist. The international style, clean lines, open spaces, and glass facades became the new trend. In 1958, the Seagram Building rose on Park Avenue. Designed by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe and Philip Johnson, it was sleek, modern, and dark, a complete departure from the decorative styles of the past. Other buildings followed suit, and soon, the New York skyline was full of boxy towers with uniform glass windows, housing banks, law firms, and global headquarters. The 1960s and 70s brought experimentation, some loved, some hated. Brutalism emerged, favoring exposed concrete, sharp angles, and fortress-like structures. The old Whitney Museum, now the Met Broyer, is one of the more famous examples, unapologetically bold and gray. Public housing projects across the city took similar cues, built quickly to solve urgent needs, but often criticized for their cold, impersonal feel. By the 1980s, a backlash was brewing. Postmodernism brought color, whimsy, and historical references back into architecture. One of the most talked about buildings of the time was the AT&T Building, designed by Philip Johnson. Its top, shaped like a Chippendale cabinet, made headlines. It wasn't just a tower, it was a conversation piece. Meanwhile, neighborhoods long neglected began to revive. Soho's old cast iron buildings were converted into trendy lofts. Artists moved into Tribeca. Abandoned factories became art galleries. New York was changing again, not just vertically, but culturally. Gentrification, for better or worse, was reshaping the architectural landscape. Then came the day that changed everything. September 11, 2001. The Twin Towers, once symbols of modern power, crumbled in a matter of hours. The skyline was scarred, the city shaken. In the years that followed, architecture played a new role, healing. The site became sacred ground, and debates over its future were intense. Eventually, the plan for One World Trade Center was approved. Designed to stand exactly 1,776 feet tall, the number wasn't accidental. It honored the year of American independence. Opened in 2014, it's more than just the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. It's a symbol of rebirth. The surrounding area transformed too. The Oculus, designed by Santiago Calatrava, became a futuristic transit hub and memorial space, its white steel ribs evoking the wings of a bird. Reflecting pools now mark the footprints of the original towers, their endless waterfalls echoing with silence and memory. And so the city kept rising. Today, New York is in what many call the Glass Age. Skyscrapers of blue and silver reach higher than ever. Hudson Yards, the largest private real estate development in U.S. history, has changed the west side of Manhattan forever. The vessel, part sculpture, part staircase, spirals into the sky, while luxury towers offer views that stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Catskills. Architects like Zaha Hadid, Bjarke Ingels, and Norman Foster have left their mark with curving lines, gravity-defying structures, and smart design. Sustainability is now a driving force. Green roofs, wind turbines, and energy-efficient glass are common features. Buildings aren't just about shelter or status anymore, they're about the future. But not everyone is celebrating. Critics argue that many of these new towers, especially super talls like 432 Park Avenue or Central Park Tower, are symbols of inequality. Often bought as investments rather than homes, these pencil-thin giants cast long shadows over Central Park, while homelessness and housing shortages persist below. The tension between beauty and justice, ambition and accessibility, remains a part of New York's architectural conversation. And yet, the city remains resilient. Old buildings are lovingly restored. New ones continue to break boundaries. Neighborhoods evolve. Styles come and go. But through it all, New York's architecture tells a continuous story, one of survival, reinvention, and imagination. Because in New York, a building is never just a building. It's a reflection of the people who live inside, the politics of its time, and the possibilities of what comes next. It's the tenement that once held 6 immigrant families, the brownstone stoop where children played stickball in the summer, the gleaming skyscraper that touches the clouds, the chapel that survived 2 centuries, the tower that fell, the tower that rose. The story of New York's architecture is not finished. In fact, it never will be, because this city is never done building.